Hey guys, before we get started on this video, we hit 14,000 subscribers today, actually about an hour ago, and I just want to say thank you for subscribing to the channel. It's really cool to see how quickly it's been growing. I mean, we just started the channel 2.5 months ago and we're already at 14,000 subscribers, so I'm very excited to see where the future will take this channel and just how much faster it'll grow. So if you've subscribed, I really appreciate you taking a chance on me and this channel to bring you some kind of entertainment or just a thoughtful experience going forward, you know, things you can kind of think about and maybe just a different perspective on things. So I appreciate it, guys, and really thank you. So with that out of the way, guys, I wanted to talk about something that's been kind of bothering me recently. Now, I look at a lot of videos on YouTube as well as you guys do, and I like to kind of look at the different discussions on the PlayStation, the Xbox, PC, and now what's popping up all over the place, the Switch. And these videos have always been really interesting to me because you see people's opinions, you see their perspective on things, and you can a lot of times compare it to your own, whether it be you agree or you disagree. And sometimes, yes, people present things as facts when they're not facts. Obviously, they are misconstrued news or their opinion formed into fact. And it happens. Sometimes you don't mean it. I'm sure I've done it a couple times too. And that's not really what's bothering me. What's bothering me is this interesting perspective from some people that Nintendo is selling out these Switch units because the demand is being artificially created by low stock. And the funny thing is, this is actually far from the truth in this case, like very far. In fact, the way the Switch is going, if you think they're artificially creating demand by lowering stock, you would have to think the same thing about the PS4 and the Xbox One at this point. So, let's go back a little bit, and I'll kind of explain to you guys what I'm talking about exactly. So in business, I've learned that the easiest way to compare sales and how well you're going to do at certain times of the year is to keep a long record. You want to keep years and years of records for what's going to happen in the future, how you're doing by comparing yourself to the previous year, or in this case, the previous generation of systems. So let's take a quick look at the PS4 and the Xbox One and see how many units they sold in the first month. And then we'll kind of look at what the Switch is doing right now and how many units Nintendo has projected to be available in its first month. So for some reason, Microsoft, probably because they've been on the losing end recently against the PS4, obviously. We all see how well the PS4 has sold. It is pretty much a sales beast at this point. It's on pace with the PS2 to break that. I don't think it will because I do think it'll slow down eventually and it won't quite get to PS2 numbers, but I do see it breaking 100 million pretty easily, and then it will slow down probably after that. And like I said, the Xbox, Microsoft, they don't like sharing numbers when they're losing. They seem to love to share numbers when they're winning. But Sony has been pretty good about reporting numbers, so we at least have that to draw from. So for the first month of the PlayStation, the PS4, it launched towards the end of November, and then of course went into December. And basically what we did get is their initial allotment throughout their first 3 weeks or so. They ended up selling about 2.1 million units. And that's a really strong sales number. That really is. 2.1 million units in your first essentially couple weeks is great. That means you had a good supply, obviously. You met demand, even though the PS4 was hard to find for a while. It's going to happen to any big system. And the PlayStation and the Xbox launched at an awesome time. You always want to launch, if you can, before Christmas. Consoles launch all the time in November. If you really look at the history, the Wii, the Xbox 360, the PS3, the PS4, the Xbox One, they all launch in November. The Xbox One had a very similar launch, right around 2 million or so units in its essentially first month or so on the market. In the first 24 hours, though, they sold 1 million units. That's great. That's your early adopters right there, and that makes sense. PS4, same thing essentially. And really, the PS4 separated itself from the Xbox big time when they launched in Japan because the Xbox barely sells in Japan. Like, it's bad. Like, they just do not buy American consoles for whatever reason. I don't know if it's because the Xbox really does not get the Japanese culture with their games. That's all I can imagine. I mean, obviously, the Xbox One is a lot of shooters, it's a lot of sports games, whereas the PS4 does cater to that Japanese audience with RPGs and things like that they like. And it was really after the first 2 months that the PS4 and the Xbox One really separated in sales, and after that, obviously, the PS4 took off, never looked back. So after the first 2 months, the PS4 sells 4.5 million units, the Xbox One sells 3.9 million units. And this is all based on the MPD group's sales figures, essentially, that helps us understand what's going on with consoles, the sales figures that have to be reported, obviously. Like I said, Microsoft's very good at fudging numbers and hiding it, especially when they're losing. When they're winning, they like to give the numbers out. We can also take a look at the Wii U's numbers. Now, the Wii U had an okay launch, actually. In the first 2 months, which is what we have to go by for the first real sales numbers, it actually accumulated just north of 3 million units sold through. It wasn't until that third month that the Wii U really started to already fall off, and it was a snail's pace since then, getting to almost basically about 13 million units now. I think a lot of people get this idea that Nintendo understocks their stuff, mostly because of the original Wii, which had about 600,000 units when it launched, sold through them very quickly, tried to keep restocking, kept selling out, and I think since then a lot of people have had this idea that Nintendo is basically understocking their stuff. This happened again with NES Classic. I have no idea what happened with that. Even that really bothered me, because Nintendo, while I do believe the NES Classic was kind of just a throwaway side project for them, I mean, it was a $60 unit. I don't think they were making a ton of money on it, and they were just kind of throwing it out there, I guess, for people to try out. Maybe it was an experiment even, and it worked. I mean, they sold through everything. They couldn't keep them on shelves. They only sold 200,000 units, though, so it's not like a lot. But for the most part, it was a success in terms of demand. And keep in mind, the Nintendo Classic was coming at a time when I'm sure they were heavily manufacturing the Switch units to be ready for launch. So there's a chance that while this was something Nintendo wanted to sell, their main focus for manufacturing was not on the NES Classic, and was on the Switch. This is also kind of my idea with the 3DS and 3DS XL as well, although those are like 5 or 6 year old systems now, and Pokemon Go, I think, really caught Nintendo and a lot of us off guard, actually. And then of course you have Sun and Moon launch, which were a smashing success, obviously, and at that point it was pretty much off to the races with 3DS, and it was so hard to find for holiday season. So here comes the Switch. People on YouTube are saying, oh, the only reason it's selling out is because there's not enough of them out there to meet demand, and that's just the way it is. And I think a lot of these people, not all of them, but a lot of them just like to bash Nintendo for whatever reason. I guess Nintendo's just the easy company to bash. I don't know. I mean, I look at it like any other company who's out there to make money. And you know what? Looking at the numbers, it actually looks like Nintendo is going to be pushing 2 million units in March, which is what the PS4 and the Xbox One pushed. So, in fact, there's a chance that the Switch is going to break more than 1 million units on launch day, which would actually eclipse the PS4 and the Xbox One sales then. And I do think Nintendo, at least the first 2 months, are going to sell these things as fast as they can produce them. I think the real telling month is going to be month 3 and month 4, because remember, that is where the Wii U badly struggled. I mean, that was it right there. That was a wrap after the second month. The Wii U just plummeted in sales. So we were fortunate enough that GameStop actually gave us some numbers. They gave us an allotted amount that they were given, which actually was 500,000 units for pre-order. And that's a good bit for one organization to get, considering there's still Amazon, Walmart, Best Buy, and then there's several other places in the UK and Australia. So 500,000 units for one organization to get is a lot. In fact, if we assume that their online site gets about 20% of those just to do pre-orders online, which means the stores get 400,000 units based on the amount of stores they have now, which is 7,117 stores currently for GameStop. That would leave each store with 56 pre-orders on the Switch. That's a lot, actually. What's even more interesting to me, and actually kind of mind-boggling, is that they also reported 1.2 million software sales during those pre-orders, which means every Switch that was pre-ordered was also pre-ordered with at least 2 games, and that's actually technically more than 2 games per, so there's a couple that did 3. Looking at the launch lineup, I assume every one of them probably pre-ordered Zelda, more than likely. That would leave like 1-2 Switch and I guess Bomberman? So either 1-2 Switch or Bomberman was picked with each one at least. That's interesting. You know, I've made fun of 1-2 Switch a lot, but I guess if you want a motion-controlled game, I guess that's what there is, so you're going to buy it to show off the motion capabilities and test the rumble features, I guess? And if we basically try to figure out, this is tough, because there's no numbers, that's the problem here. We have to imagine Amazon, Best Buy, and Walmart did not get that same 500,000 unit allotment, only because then we would be over 2 million units. I have to imagine each one of them probably got somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to 200,000 for their online and in-store stuff, which would actually put that number just over 1 million units at that point. And then, of course, you have to take other things into consideration, such as, like I said, retailers in the UK like Game, which seems kind of popular, but their fine print currently does say you may not get it at launch. And Listen, Nintendo is going to be pushing these things out. They're not going to create an artificial store, like artificial demand situation where they just lower stock. Honestly, I get sometimes people believe that, and I can understand that sometimes too, because it technically is a marketing strategy to not give people what they want. But if you're a company that needs to move these systems to then get game sales as well, possibly entice third parties, why would you do that? You're only helping the scalping market. Nintendo, let's get real, guys. Nintendo is not trying to artificially create demand. If I'm going to sit here and tell you they are, I'm a bad business person and I need to put my tinfoil hat on. And no, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's extremely unlikely. It seems like whenever Nintendo stuff sells out, it's because they're artificially creating demand. Then for some reason, Sony was not guilty of this with the PlayStation VR. I have no idea why. They were also not guilty of it when the PS2 memory card fiasco went on. If you're old enough to know what I'm talking about, you understand what happened with those PS2 memory cards, but they were never blamed for that. Interesting, right? PS2s sell out. They're not to blame, though. You know, sometimes you just have to think about it and say, well, maybe the unit is popular enough to warrant selling out. That's what I thought when the PS4 sold out. I didn't go, wow, Sony is screwing us, guys. They're artificially creating demand. Because I could not get my friend a PS4 after it launched. I pre-ordered mine. They couldn't get one because it was sold out everywhere. We didn't automatically believe that Sony was artificially creating demand. We just figured everyone was buying it. But that's it for the video, guys. No, Nintendo is not artificially creating demand for the Switch. That's not why it's selling out. It's selling out because people want the system. Despite how many naysayers are online and how many people say it's stupid because it's not as powerful as the Xbox One and the PS4. It's not always about power, guys. Sometimes it's about exclusives. It's just the way it goes. I'm not saying the Switch is any better than the PS4 or the Xbox One. I'm just explaining to you what's happening. And that, you know what? Sometimes the system's just popular. The Wii wasn't my favorite system out of the bunch, but I understand that it sold really well. I was a 360 and PS3 person back then. I liked the Wii for certain games. I would be a fool to say I didn't like Wii Sports because it was fun. But you know what? I looked at the Wii and said, well, people want it. That's the way it goes. So sales don't always make the system better every single time. And that's going to do it for tonight, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you check out Newswave tomorrow. There's a couple things about Mario and the Switch, and then we're also going to talk about Resident Evil 7 and how it actually may have already leaked onto the market. So I will see you guys tomorrow at 10 a.m. See you then.